Shalom. I'd like for us to begin by learning a new melody. Is that okay? Something new? I'm going to teach it to us. We're going to sing it as long as we need to until everybody's got it. So it's like this. Ya da 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 da. Try that. Ya da da da. We repeat that. Ya da 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 da. Now a little change. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Very good from the beginning. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. La 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 la. Ya da 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 da. Good, but not good enough. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Yada yada da da da. Ya da 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 da. Second part. Ya da 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 da. Try it. Ya da da ya da da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. From the beginning. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Okay, from the beginning all the way through, right? Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Yada yada ya da da. Ya da 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 da. Second part. Ya da da ya da da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Try that. Ya da da. Ya da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. And then. Ya da 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 da. Walk it all home, right? So I'll do the second part again. You can sing along with me. Ya da da ya da da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Da 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 da. Second part. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Now tell me, doesn't that sound a little bit like a wedding march or something? It's got that kind of processional, right? Maybe a recessional, maybe a absessional. No. Let's do it from the beginning again, all the way through. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da ya da da Okay, that was very good. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Tom Goodhertz. I'm joined here on the Bima by
David Elitzer.
David Elitzer. And we're very happy that you've joined us tonight for this kind of a special and unique Shabbat service. We're not going to do all the prayers in the Kabbalat Shabbat service, but we're going to do kind of a combination of song and learning and texts and singing to put an emphasis on those parts of the Kabbalat Shabbat service that come from the Jewish mystical tradition. We'll learn a little bit from some texts about the Jewish mystical tradition and sing some of these songs maybe that we know, but we'll sing them after learning about their significance and perhaps their hidden or concealed or not obvious meanings. We'll sing them with a different spirit. So if I could ask you to turn to page 636, we want to just do a little more singing. We want to open up the chambers of song as we look to the space within to so the first words here are Yedid Nefesh Av Harachaman. Yedid is a friend and Nefesh is a soul. So we're singing to the friend of our soul, to the beloved of our soul. And we're saying Av Harachaman, right? Av is a word meaning father. Rachaman is a word meaning lover, but also love. So Av Harachaman is like fathering, mothering, loving. Mother, father, love, right? Meshoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha. Draw your servant into your arms. Yedid Nefesh Av Harachaman Meshoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayah Yishtachaveh El Mul Hadarecha Ye'erav Lo Yedidutecha Ninofetzu Those last two lines mean, your love is sweeter to me than the taste of honey. So this is a love song. So let's sing it like one. Yedid Nefesh Av Harachaman Meshoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayah Yishtachaveh Emur Hadarecha Ye'erav Lo Yedidutecha Menofetzu And if we go down to the last chorus, the last verse, we're just going to do the first couple of words there. We're going to sing Higali na, reveal yourself. Ufros chavivi alai, and spread. Chavivi means my friend, my beloved, my sweet one, my special one. Alai, et sukkah shlomecha, the sukkah of your peace. So we're imagining that someone is just kind of coming over to us with a big, beautiful, warm blanket, and just covering us and sheltering us. in that sukkah of peace. Higale, gale, gale, na, ufros, habibi alai, et sukkah, sukkah, shalom Igale, gale, gale, na, ufros, fros, habibi alai, et sukkah, sukkah, shalom I don't know how to end it, so let's do it again. Igale, gale, gale, la, ufros, ufros, habibi alai, et sukkah, sukkah, shalom Take a breath. So we're going to keep on singing, but we're going to go back to page 142, and we're going to welcome the Sabbath with the singing of Shalom Aleichem, page 142. And write 4 verses here. Shalom Aleichem. Hey, welcome. Here you are. Then we say, Bo'achem l'shalom. Enter in peace. Come into me in peace. Say, Barchuni l'shalom. Bless me with peace. Leave me with a residue of your blessing. And Tzeitchem l'shalom. Go on your way and spread the Sabbath peace in the rest of the world. So, Shalom Aleichem, page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bo'achem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Bimelech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to invite up our 4 guests from Baltimore Hebrew congregation to come forward and light our Shabbat candles. at a text, which I hope you all have in front of you that you got when you came in. The first text we're going to look at tonight, it has in it, in the Hebrew, a couple of lines which are really very well known, probably. But before we read the text, and this is from the Midrash Genesis Rabbah, I want to see a few things about three words we have at the top of the page. So the first word is kadosh. And kadosh means holy or set apart. Kiddush, which we do on Friday night, which we'll do when we're all done, has nothing to do with wine, zero, okay? But it is the blessing over the wine with which we sanctify the Sabbath and call the Sabbath into our presence. And so it's called Kiddush because we declare or make it holy with the blessing over the wine and the words about it. But the Jewish word for marriage is kiddushin, kiddushin. So, any thoughts why that might be? Because it's holy, yeah, and and it's what? It should be a relationship which has in it holiness. And it also comes probably from the word to set apart, right? That by making a kiddushin, by making a marriage between two people, it sets apart that particular relationship from all the other relationships in the world, so that something holy and sacred can take place in it. And this, of course, is the Jewish trick to set days apart, to set things apart, so that something special and unique can take place in them, just as we set apart the Sabbath day. So, in the Torah, in the book of Genesis, it says, Vayivarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i v'yikadesh oto. Now, did anybody grow up in a house where before you said the Kiddush, you had a little something before that? Yom HaShishi, Vayichulu HaShamayim v'haaretz v'chol zaman, Vayichal Elohim b'Yom HaShvi'i melachto asher asa, Vayivarech et Adonai. So it says, Vayivarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i v'yikadesh oto, which literally means God blessed the Sabbath and declared it holy. But you could also read that as saying, so God blessed the Sabbath day and arranged for her marriage. L'kadesh is to make a marriage, right? Same word. So now the Midrash, commenting on this, Rabbi Berechia and Rabbi Dostai ask, in what way did God bless the Shabbat? And the answer was, it was because she had no mate, no partner. Sunday had Monday, Tuesday had Wednesday, Thursday had Friday, okay? So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught the Shabbat came before the Holy One and said, Holy One, every day of the week has a partner. The days of the week all have a partner, but who is my partner? And the Holy One said to her, Knesset Yisrael, the whole congregation of Israel, the whole people of Israel is your partner. And lo and behold, when that whole congregation of Israel stood at Mount Sinai, and the Holy One spoke, the Holy One reminded them, this is the meaning of the commandment I'm giving you, the fourth commandment, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho, which we usually translate as remember the Sabbath day to make her holy, but which could also be read as remember the Sabbath day and be wedded to her. So really from a very, very simple sense that beneath this word Kadesh, the kodsho, could have multiple meanings, the rabbis come to this idea that the people of Israel are the counterpart, the loving partner, the person that's the entity that stands in relationship to the Shabbat, like a bride and a groom or any two loving partners. So it's this idea that the Sabbath is actually the counterpart of the entire people of Israel, who we, it's kind of an interesting marriage because 6 days of the week we're living apart. But on Shabbat, the marriage is, so to speak, renewed as the people of Israel and the Shabbat come into a special and unique relationship. And actually, we kind of know this already, because if we know the words of the Lachadodi, right, the Lachadodi begins with these words, Lachadodi, come my friend, Likrat Kala, let us go out towards the bride. And who's the bride? B'nai Shabbat Nekabla, let us welcome the Sabbath day. So the going forward to greet Shabbat, when the people of Israel sing it, are as if a bridegroom is stepping forward to meet the bride and to encounter them at this moment in time. So let's go to the Chadodi on page 138. And as we look at the verses, you may never have read the English of them. I'm just going to talk some of them through. And the composer of the Chadodi was a mystic, was a man named Rabbi Shlomo Al-Kabetz. And if you weren't sure about that, you could just look at the first letter of every verse, and he spelled out his name there for us to see. Take a look. The first verse says Shin, second one Lamed, next one Mem, next one Hey, right? Halevi, right?
Lest you forget.
Lest you forget. So he was a mystic from Tzfat, and this is a mystical hymn, and it's part of a mystical practice. We're told that the Kabbalists who were living in the city of Tzfat, and we're talking about the 16th century, some 20, 30 years after they had been expelled from Spain and had arrived in the land of Israel, began to develop a mystical community. Many of the famous mystics came from this little group of Kabbalists in Tzfat, and they used to walk out into the fields at the moment when the Sabbath was entering the world and sing these songs. This was written for that moment when the Knesset Yisrael, the people of Israel, greet the Sabbath. So Lachadodi, right? Let us go and greet the bride. P'nei Shabbat Nekabla. Let's greet this counterpart, the mate, the beloved companion of the people of Israel. Let's greet the P'nei Shabbat, the presence, right? That we welcome into our hearts after 6 days of work. The special companion in whom the people of Israel rejoices. Then the next verse, Shamor v'zachor. Remember and observe. Remember, as it says in Exodus, Zachor, and observe, as it says in Deuteronomy, B'dibur achad, one word. It's as if God said two different words, but they have one meaning. Hishmianu el hamiyuchad, so we heard it from the one God. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, God is one, his name is one, l'shem u'letiferet v'letchila, for glory and beauty and praise. And then the next verse, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, let us go together and draw near to Shabbat. Ki hi mekor habracha, for she is the source of blessings. And we'll see a little bit later in our next text how when the Shabbat and the Holy One greet, it releases an overflow of blessings into the world. At this moment of union brings these blessings. Merosh mikedem nesucha, Merosh from the very beginning, nesucha, she was conceived of, thought of at the outset of creation. Shabbat was in God's mind. Sof ma'aseh, the last thing created, b'machshava techila, but in the mind, the first. Meaning that Shabbat was first in thought, that Shabbat is a destination. Shabbat was as the Jefferson Airplane used to say, the crown of creation. Okay. Was the end, the culmination, the goal, the telos, right? The thing towards which everything is moving, the destination, the reason for, the end, the day that gives meaning to the days before. And this idea of Shabbat being the end or a goal, when you think about an end or a goal in Jewish thought, so we always think about the end of the direction of Jewish history, which is not static, but it's moving towards something. It's moving towards that final Shabbat, that final day of rest, when the Messianic time will come, when all the wars will come to an end, and where this long, long slog of history will finally reach a kind of culmination. And that's why the next 6 verses of L'Chadodi are actually sung not to the Shabbat, but to Jerusalem. Right? And at the time that it's written, Jerusalem is cast down and in the dust, right? Not rebuilt, at least as far as the Jews are concerned. So these next couple of verses, they all use this metaphor of a city, a place that is cast down, right? Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, royal shrine, city of kings. Kumi tzei mitocha, I think. Rise up and leave your ravaged state. Rav lach shevet be'emek habracha, you have dwelt long enough in the valley of tears. Hitna'ari, lift yourself up. Me'afar kumi, get yourself up from the dust, shake away the dust. Ki ba'orech kumi ori, for your light is coming. Awaken, arise, and sing. Yaminu small tifrotzi, one day you will spread out to the left and to the right. V'nismacha benagila, and we'll all rejoice and be glad. And then the last verse returns to the Shabbat. So the last verse on page 9, Boi b'shalom, enter in peace, Ateret ba'ala, the Sabbath bride who is the crown of her husband. Gam b'simcha u'v'tzohola, with simcha, with joy, tzohola, rejoicing. And how does the Sabbath enter? Toch emunei am sigula, come into the midst of this faithful, this special people, the ones who cherish her and love her. Boi kala, enter, O bride, enter, O bride. So this song that we sing every Shabbat really encodes or expresses or uses poetry to talk about this relationship between the people of Israel and the Shabbat as a loving relationship like a bride. Okay. So now that we know that, we will sing it in a different way tonight than we ever sang it before. Okay. We'll sing it to a melody that sounds a little bit like, also like a wedding procession. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And here's the melody we'll use. Lechadri likrat kalas Shabbat Kabbalat. Just kidding. David commented to me that Richard Wagner, Yamach Shemo, who wrote that melody, would be turning over in his grave if he knew that the Jews were singing it to Lechadodi. So, and we don't want to cause Richard Wagner to turn over in his grave any more than he already did. No. So we'll do a different melody. Lechadodi likrat galah Shabbat mekabla O lechadodi likrat galah B'nei Shabbat mekabla Shamor v'zachor b'dibur sing the next verse. I don't know about you, but I do a lot of weddings. And what happens when the bride comes in? Everybody stands up, please. Boi beshalom, ateret bala, kom besimcha, uzola, kol emuneh, asegula, boi chala, olech adodim likrat gala, bnei Shabbat mekabla, olech adodim likrat gala, bnei Shabbat nekabla. So the bride is already in the room, and the wedding party may be seated.
So we've been talking about mysticism a lot. It's a word that probably have all heard, but it's worth asking, what is mysticism anyways? So Gershom Scholem, the 20th century's preeminent scholar of Jewish mysticism, once wrote that there are as many definitions of mysticism as there are people who write on the subject. But nevertheless, he did go on to add one more definition himself. And, it's like a crowded field. He recognizes this before he offers it, but it is one that I find helpful. Mysticism is the experience of the inner self entering into immediate contact with God, or the so-called metaphysical reality. I will repeat that. Mysticism is the experience of the inner self entering into immediate contact with God, or the so-called metaphysical reality. In other words, mysticism is a personal, unmediated encounter with the divine. Whatever concept that might mean to everyone here, I know we say God, we say divine, a lot of different images come up, but whatever that image is, it's that personal, unmediated encounter with the divine. There are countless ways that one can encounter God, can have a mystical experience, this personal, unmediated encounter with the divine. It can happen in moments when we're singing to greet the Shabbat bride, which we just did. It could be through going really, really deep into a text, also just did that. It could be through immersing in art, which we'll get a chance to do later in the weekend. So tonight, and also over the course of the Shabbat and through Sunday, for those of you who are going to be here, we're going to explore the various ways of tapping into Judaism's vast and diverse mystical tradition. A tradition of over 2,500 years that cover actually many, many different mystical traditions through ritual, music, text, and art, all right here at CBI. All these modes of engagement, be it ritual, music, text, art, have deep, deep roots in our mystical tradition. A lot of people think Kabbalat immediately when we say mysticism. And that tradition itself, there's a lot there. We've just touched the service tonight. We'll do some more. But there's actually a lot more to it. All the way back from the prophets, including Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel, and others, to the less read, but one of my favorite, Hechalot, the late antique mystical tradition, imagining journeys to and from the heavens. And also a lot of other really weird stuff that we can talk about later. To the Zohar, this magnificent body of work that appears in 13th century Spain, to the teachings of Hasidism, and to the home-based mystical practices found in many Jewish families around the world. Various aspects of Jewish mysticism, they may seem a little closer, a little more familiar, but sometimes they might seem a little more distant, a little less familiar, a little less intuitive to our lived experiences. But I actually think that these forms of mysticism that seem less intuitive to us can actually be a real gift in making it clearer what the value of it is, what the value of having a mystical experience is. I think mysticism at its best challenges us to engage with reality in ways that are different from how we normally do. As this alternate engagement with reality, mysticism allows for the possibility of just for a moment stepping outside of ourselves to try to see the world in new and different lights. Doing this is no small task, and it definitely doesn't always come easily. For anyone who's ever tried to open the Zohar, you might relate to that, but we still invite you to give it a try.
So we're going to look at the text that's on the second page behind your text page. It's not a text, it's a diagram. Okay, it looks like this. Okay. So just a show of hands, for how many people in the room is this kind of familiar? Do you kind of recognize what this is? A few people. How many people, this is the first time you're ever looking at this thing completely? Okay. So what we have here, actually, is, as David said, kind of a map, an alternate map of a different reality that is not accessible to our sight or to our touch or to our senses, but the mystical tradition has developed this map that basically tries to answer the question, very simple question, which is, if God in God's original nature is a unity, echad, a unity without any division, no things, right? A divine no-thingness, divine nothingness, sometimes referred to as ayin, which means no thingness, means no division. We're divided. I'm Tom, he's David. But in God, there is unity. There's no thing, no separate things, just God. Okay? So the philosophers or the mystics asked, how can a world like this, which is divided, which, as Aristotle tells us, there's A and not A, how does a world like this come to exist from a God who is everything, one and without division? And to answer that question, they kind of imagined that God had to create a space within God's self in order for a world to emerge. And that everything that emerges in the world, it can only come from one place because there is nothing else but God. As we say, ein od milvado. There ain't nothing else. There's just God. So everything that emerges in the world that God created must have come from God's self. Okay? And since the first words of Genesis, the first creation, uses the word God said, let there be light. So they imagine this in the sense of light sometimes, that God emanated light, right, into the world. And light is a beautiful image because the light that's on the sun at this moment is on the sun, and yet it's also here in the room. So light has this quality of being able, we now that we know there are waves that connect us, because light is a wave, but light's also a particle, light is this original primordial image for how God's godness emanates or enters the world. And so they imagined that the things that emerge from God are going to be these spiritual qualities, right? Because God is a spiritual being. And they give them names. And so this chart, okay, is one of the set of names that the mystics gave to God. To the world that emanated from God. And each of them is sort of a different divine quality. So at the top, you have Keter, which means crown. Keter is sort of the very, very first desire of God to create in the first place, almost inseparable from the divine will. And then on the right side, you have something called Chokhmah, which is translated as wisdom, and Binah, which is translated as understanding. And wisdom and understanding are sort of two different aspects, right, of, let's say, of being. Okay? So wisdom in this sense, you can almost translate it as intelligence. Wisdom and intelligence is like an intellect that like grabs everything into it. It's like always reaching out. It's capturing more information. It knows more. It's capturing more. But it has a counterpart on the other side called understanding, which is the ability to receive intelligence, to receive data, to receive everything that's known, to give it a shape, to limit it, to pull it all together, and that's what we call understanding, right? We know plenty of people who are very, very smart, but don't seem to have a lot of understanding. And there are people who have a lot of understanding, but maybe not that smart. But the idea is that these are two different ways of the intellect. Right? Further down on the next couple, and again on the right side is something called chesed, love, a divine quality of like outward flowing, always giving. Think of a fountain that's just love, 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 always love, love going in every direction, right? And you might say, what's wrong with that? But love also needs a vessel, right? Love needs a container, right? If I don't really know where I stop and David begins, then we're not really going to be able to love one another because we can't respect one another and understand each other. Okay? You need to have a vessel, you need to have a sense of limit, you need to have an identity, who you are, in order to be able to receive and manifest the love. So this outward going love is on one side, and the gevura, which means strength or power to restrict, is its counterpart, right? Then you notice that in the middle, there is something called tiferet, which is sometimes translated as compassion, which in a way is maybe the perfect harmony between boundaries and love. Now, I'm not going to look, but I'm sure that everybody here in this room has this perfectly in balance. Am I right? No. Okay? Like this complementarity between love and limit, right, which is so necessary. In theory, there's a middle point, there's a perfect balance. But for most of us, it's not in balance, right? And neither is the world that we live in. Then you have two more kind of hard to describe, but also complementary, netzach, which is endurance, meaning sort of the best metaphor that I could give. This is sort of the same balance between love and judgment, but maybe on a physical level, right? Going down a step, right? If you think about this also, the Torah tells us that the human being was created in the image of God. So the image of God might look a little bit like a human being, with a head, with the intellect, with the heart, the emotions, with the physical, the next step down, and finally the consummation, which we will get to in a moment. So Netzach and Hod, the best I could say that Netzach is that endurance, that power. Let's say that I always think of the Verrazano Bridge, okay? Somebody designed that amazing, amazing structure. It's full of concrete and cables and beauty, but something had to give it the form, right? The thing that receives that and gives it the form is the counterpart, which we call majesty. And then in the center is something called yesod, or foundation. And at the bottom of the chart is a property that is called Shekhinah, or Malchut. Malchut means kingdom, or Shekhinah. And in this chart, as you can see, all the divine energies, when everything is in balance, flow into Shekhinah. And why is she called Malchut? Because when all Malchut means dominion or kingdom, that when all these things flow into her, she receives them all, and the world is generated. So the world that we live in is a product of the divine energies entering the Shekhinah, and Shekhinah kind of rules over this world that we live in, which is why she's called Malchut. You may recognize some of these words. I'm going to sing a song, and if you start with me, start on the right-hand side of the page. And instead of saying the word chesed, say the word gedulah. Ready? Lecha Adonai Hagedula V'Hagevura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod Ki Chol Bashamai Uva'aretz, which means everything in the heavens and the earth. Ki Chol Bashamai Uva'aretz Lecha Adonai Hamamlacha Malchut Hamid Nahaseh Lechol Ol, which means who is raised up above everything as the head. So if you want to know where these words come from, they come from that verse, which actually comes from the book of Chronicles. So the Shekhinah mitnaseh michol rosh, that once all these divine energies flow into the Shekhinah, then she is raised up and everything is created from her. She rules, so to speak, over this world. You'll just notice in green, if your eyes are good enough to tell, that sometimes, how many people went to school where they had transparencies? Remember those transparencies? You'd have this thing and then they put a transparency over it and say, well, it would look like if we put this transparency over it. So they lay over this map, and transparency, they said, you know what, some of these qualities can be assigned to like the biblical characters. So Chesed is Abraham, and Gevura is Isaac, and Tiferet is Jacob, and Netzach is Moses, and Hod is Aaron, and Yesod is Joseph, and Shekhinah is David, or sometimes Rachel. Okay. And so if we look at this chart, right, it's beautiful. It looks like it's all perfectly in balance. But that is not the way the world is. These are not easy to keep in balance and to keep harmonized. If the world were always in balance, there would always be a chain. These two sides, it's kind of like we're pulling on each other. He's going to pull this way, pulling that way. But if everything's in balance, all the sides line up. In the central column, the energy can flow from the most arcane and remote and impossible to imagine God and God's self, right? Through the central channel, they call Tiferet here the Holy One, okay? And they call the bottom Shekhinah. So if everything is lined up, then there can be a unity and a flow and an encounter, a perfect encounter, a harmonious encounter between the Holy One and the Shekhinah. Okay. And when that happens, right, when everything is in balance, just all the channels are open, everything flows, right? It's all flowing, it's all life, and it's all beautiful. But it's not always like that. And actually, that's our experience of the divine in the world. That the divine is not always flowing beautifully and well under control. Actually, the opposite, right? The divine often feels like it's in the dust and powerless and not able to make all the energy flow. That the world is not that way, right? So you would think that all is lost, right? The divine experience in the world is experienced, in the words of the Chadodi, being cast down in the dust, trampled by the powers of injustice and cruelty and human ignorance and human weakness, the other side, the Sitra Achra, the evil inclination. But the divine does have some help in this world. And the ones who were created in the image of the divine, raise your hand. Everybody in this room, okay? Those who are created in the image of the divine, we do have agency. And we can make choices. We're the only thing in creation that really has this unique agency, like God has to think, to create, to make a choice, and to do something. Although animals can do it too, but that's not good. The mission of the believer, the faithful ones and the righteous ones, are to make something that's called a tikkun. And a tikkun means a fix, a repair, a putting things back together, a putting things back into place, to perfect these sefirot as we experience them in ourselves and the world, and in so doing, to put everything back in its proper place so the system can be made whole, so the divine can be made whole, if only for a moment. And Jewish mysticism teaches, as above, so below. As below, so above. So the idea of this mystical experience is to understand that when we are able to reconcile love and limit, chesed and gevura, we are also able to affect that in the world, and literally in the divine. Okay? We're able to fix God, if you will. That's what tikkun means. And in this effort, it turns out that we have a very powerful helper. Because every seventh day, say the mystics, the special and unique spiritual power of Shabbat re-enters the world. And this power, this secret of the Sabbath, has the ability to repair. That should be obvious, right? Anybody who's experienced Shabbat knows that you can repair a lot of things in your life if you can observe the Shabbat, if you can set aside and get in touch with that inner self, right? And this power, the secret of the Sabbath, can bring into balance and rebalance the divine powers as they're expressed in the world. So the mystics suggest that when the community of Israel, raise your hand, all of us, will enhance the power of Shabbat by loving her and adorning her and observing her and making her beautiful. In so doing, we can bring harmony to the divine realm as well and help the system to line up. And so in effect, to affect the wedding, the reunion of the loving encounter between these two aspects of the divine. The transcendent Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, and the immanent Shekhinah, which is dwelling among us and within us. We can bring these together. And these two aspects of the divine that are separated most of the time can come together in a loving relationship. And when these divine principles are reunited, the Holy One and the Shekhinah, wow, love and harmony are restored. The forces of evil lose their hold over us. Blessings flow into the world, and new souls are created. And this is exactly the imagery of a song we're going to sing now, a piyut, that was a liturgical poem written in Aramaic by Isaac Luria, mystic of Tzfat. So let's look at the words. Let's look at the words, which is on the first page of your text sheet, at the bottom of the page. It's called Azamer Bishvachim. And I've only given you the first line in the Aramaic, and then the rest of it I've translated into a possibly singable English translation. But the words are, Azamer Bishvachim, I will sing with holy praise, to enter into the gates of the holy apple field. Now that's a metaphor for the Shekhinah. We can't go into it now, but maybe we'll go into it at Shal Shudas tomorrow. A table is set for her. A lamp sheds light on us. So it's as if the Shekhinah, the her here is the Shekhinah, who's entering the world with Shabbat, right? Between right and left, see the bride approach in holy jewels and festive royal clothes. Her beloved embraces her, and because of her delight, all torment and cries are past. New souls and faces are born. Her husband gives her joy, a double portion now. Lights shine upon her. Blessings flow from on high, and the final exhortation, which are to those who accompany the bride, those who are accompanying Shabbat, those who are the friends of Shabbat, the lovers of Shabbat, the allies of Shabbat. Raise your hands. All of us, right? Adorn the holy bride. So this piyut imagines, right, scene, lights on the left and right, the bride entering, wearing jewels. This is all a metaphor for this moment where this unity takes place. And you'll be able to sing this because it's to a possibly recognizable melody. Let's do the melody, and then we'll do the words. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da da. Blessings flow from on high. Bridesmen, bridesmaids, adorn the holy bride. Take a deep breath. So, we might have a little time for questions a little later, if you have any. But what we're going to do is do a little bit of the service, just a few prayers from the Friday night service, beginning with the Baruch Hu on page 140.
Please rise as you're able. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Let's be seated.
Continue on page 152.
With the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 154 in the Hebrew than the English. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Read the English now. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Turn to page 158. Chamocha. We are marching in the light of God. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nehtar hakodesh. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nehtar hakodesh. No rahat tehilot, osef eleh. No rahat tehilot, osef eleh. Malchutecha ra'u b'hanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze'eli, anu ve'yameru Adonai imloho le'olam va'ed. La la la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la. We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, we are marching, we are marching in the light of God. So, we thought for the Amidah tonight, rather than all the prayers that are in the prayer book, that we would offer everyone an opportunity. If you wish, you may rise for this part of the service. If you wish, you can remain seated and close your eyes and meditate. We're hoping that in these few moments of private prayer, you'll either pray the words in the prayer book, or perhaps you can reflect on some of the things that you heard tonight from David or from myself. Maybe choose a single image or a single metaphor, a feeling, some idea that you want to cherish, that you are going to strive for in your life. The idea maybe of setting things right, or of adding strength to your Shabbat, or of sadness falling away, or of reunion with your own Shabbat soul, when it says that souls are born, right? When the unity happens, those souls are our Shabbat souls. Shabbat is a chance for reunion with your Neshama Yetera, with your additional soul. I'm not sure if the soul is born on Shabbat. I remember one of my rabbis, whose name I'm forgetting now, but I'll remember later, said, you don't actually get an extra soul on Shabbat. You just get your own soul back. You get your own soul back. Something that we don't feel and notice during the week, but if we give ourselves the time, if we set it apart, get in touch with our own soul. So those are the souls that are created at this moment that Shabbat enters. They're created because we suddenly can see them and feel them and experience them. So we'll just invite you to rise. The Amidah begins, if you wish to rise, or to remain seated. The Amidah begins on page 164, and we're just going to do the invocation to the Amidah and then go into the silence. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. So on page 180, the last paragraph on the page, every part of the service, and certainly the Amidah, always begins or ends with a prayer with these words, which are a prayer for peace. So before we sing Oseh Shalom, I want to offer a prayer for peace. May the one that blessed our ancestors, source of compassion, bless all those who dwell in the good land, Eretz Yisrael and Palestine, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and figs and pomegranates, of olive oil and honey. May all the descendants of Abraham be able to drink from the Be'er Lahai Roi, the wellspring of divine life. May they, in their own ways and according to their own traditions, come to know you and realize the true freedom from suffering and sorrow and torment. May they experience together your blessing and will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down untroubled by anyone. I will give the land respite from vicious beasts, and no sword shall cross your land. We pray that this land and its inhabitants may become a blessing to all of humanity and a beacon of possibility in time. Oh, say shalom bimroma, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Say shalom bimroha, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Oh, say shalom bimroma, oh yeah, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. So we'll offer an opportunity to say a prayer of healing. We're just going to speak a couple of words in this prayer of healing. You can repeat after me. Elna, Refana, La. Elna, Refana, La. Elna, Refana, La. The shortest and most successful prayer for healing in the world, spoken by Moses when his sister Miriam was struck with leprosy. He says, please God, heal her. So before we sing it, I'm going to pass my hand around the congregation. And if anybody wishes to mention the name of somebody for whom we can pray healing, please do so aloud or silently. So we sing together. El Narefana La, 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 El Narefana Lo, 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 El Narefana before we conclude, David and I thought we would open the floor to a question or two. If anybody had a question, a clarification, reflection, a thought, a feeling, an insight, a heartbeat about some of the ideas we've talked about tonight. These are all kind of universal spiritual principles. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I was going to use the word tensegrity. Does anybody know what that word means, tensegrity? Tell me how you'd explain that, because I'm not good at it. But what's tensegrity? And I looked for it, but I used to have a little model at home for when my wife Carmi, may her memory be a blessing, would study the Alexander technique, where, if you push on this part of it, this part is going to move. If you pull on this part of it, this is going to move, and it's out of whack, and getting it to be exactly right. It's not easy, but that's what you're looking for, the tensegrity, to bring it into balance. Instead of, it's a beautiful thought, beautiful thought. Right. Thoughts, yeah, thoughts? I mean, the language here is using the bridegroom and the bride, but actually sometimes Shekhinah is referred to as daughter. I mean, a relationship between a parent and a daughter is also a beautiful relationship that I've got at least one. God knows are not always in harmony and sync, but sometimes are. You know what I mean? It's also, or between two lovers, two beloveds, really between two entities that together, when they're really together, are like a single entity. The energy is flowing. There's blessing. Thank you. So to conclude, or to begin to conclude, I invite you to look at the last sheet. Those are the shots. Okay. This is actually a passage from the Zohar. And you'll see that the passage ends with radiant faces as they call out Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach. So in a Kabbalistic prayer book, this would be recited just before the Baruchu. The idea being that when Kabbalat Shabbat happens, when we welcome the Sabbath, when all this happens, this is what happens, and it's a beautiful, beautiful summary in a way. It's a very beautiful prayer in the Aramaic. I'm gonna play the melody that we'll go into for our Aleinu, and the words that we're going to conclude are the ones at the bottom of the page, Ein Od Milvado, to remind us that even though we talk about God in all these different ways and all these different attributes, or different lights, or different forces, or different gates, or different everything, we understand that in God's true nature, there's nothing, it's all God. These are all just the way that God manifests in the world, in all of us. Sod HaShabbat.
The mystery of Shabbat is Shabbat herself. She, Malchut, Shechina, is called Shabbat when she is united in the secret of oneness, that she may immerse in the mystery of one. It happens during the Ma'ariv prayers of Shabbat, for then she is unified through the secret of oneness and becomes ready for the highest Holy One to descend upon her. When Shabbat comes, she enters into union and sheds the side of otherness, the Sitra Achra, the forces of negativity. All judgment and harshness pass from her, and she remains in union with the holy radiance. She crowns herself with many crowns as she faces the Holy King. All the forces of anger and grievance flee, and there is no power but she in all the worlds. Her face glows with a heavenly light, and she is crowned from below by the holy people, who themselves are enwrapped and crowned with the new supernal souls that come with Shabbat. Then their prayers begin by blessing her with bliss, with radiant faces, and they call out, Baruch et Adonai Amvarach.
Einod milvado, Einod milvado, Adonai hu ha-Elohim. 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 So I invite us now to turn to page 586 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Sorry, 598 for the Mourner's Kaddish. 598. In this congregation this week, we are remembering Manna Baruch, Rose Brenner, Marvin Kolker, Joel Fields, David Frederick, Ruth Goodhertz, Herbert Heilberg, Baron Kesser, Paul Lowe, Bill Lucy, Joseph Marcus, Robin McCarty, Mildred Paris, Thomas Strauss, Elaine Sherman, Sidney Shapanka, Jacqueline Moore, Saul Sokoch, Grace Magnus Stone, Francesca Langbaum, and we're still observing Shiva or Shloshim for Elon Cohen, husband of Leah, for Bob Dwoskin, husband of Sue, and for Seymour Rabinowitz, husband of Marion. So those people who are either observing periods of mourning or who wish to join the mourners are invited to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kedusha.
Baruchu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru,
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May their memories be a blessing. So So a couple of announcements. As David mentioned, this is the start of kind of a scholar in residence weekend. David is one of our scholars, and the other one is Ria. Give us a wave, Ria Stark. I'll just say a little bit about both of them to encourage you to come to other events that were happening this weekend. So David is a fourth-year rabbinical student at Hebrew Union College. He is specialized in hospital chaplaincy, in pediatrics and psychiatry. He holds a BA in archaeology from Brown University, and after that, after college, he was awarded a UK Government Marshall Scholarship to research wartime cultural heritage destruction, during which time he received a Master of Science in International Public Policy from University College in London and an MPhil in Architecture and Urban Studies from the University of Cambridge. And David enjoys gardening, hiking, baking bread, playing guitar and banjo, and he enjoys being back here at CBI, where he was our student intern last year. Okay, Ria Stark, a second-year doctoral student at Columbia University, specializing in medieval Islamic art and the intersection of Islamic and Jewish visual cultures. She holds a BA in Middle Eastern Studies and Archaeology from Brown University and an MPhil in Islamic Art and Archaeology from University of Oxford, where she attended as a Rhodes Scholar. She currently has the best job in the world, I think, for a person of her talents, research assistant in the Islamic and European Paintings Department of the Metropolitan Museum in New York, where she's working on a forthcoming exhibition exploring Orientalism and 19th century artistic networks between Paris, Cairo, and Istanbul. And David and Ria together, out of their commitment to living heritage preservation, led them to co-found the Jewish Craft School in New York, which is a community dedicated to the transmission and reinterpretation of Jewish craft and artistic knowledge. So we have a lot to learn from David and Ria, and we hope that you will find it, that you'll come to any of the other events happening this weekend. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., David is going to take a very unusual Jewish mystical text and present it to us and try to unpack it. He spoke before, right, about those heavenly journeys in which the adept ascends to the seven realms of the heavenly realm and encounters all kinds of things and hopefully comes out alive. So David's going to take us through a text like that, and hopefully we'll come out alive. That's at 4 o'clock. At 5:30, we're going to have the special Shalashudas, a third meal on the Shabbat, which will consist mostly of just a few songs to kind of prolong that special quality. We don't want the bride to leave us too soon. We want to be more in her presence, so we prolong the afternoon with some singing and some song. And then we have a dinner, and following the dinner, Ria is going to lead a workshop on making your own personal amulets. Ria has a lot of experience in Jewish amulets and that whole tradition, and will share that with us, and you have a chance to make your own amulets. And on Sunday morning at 11, she's going to do a presentation, a slideshow on the amulet tradition, right? In specifically childbirth amulets, and that's why we got the slideshow set up there with slides and all the things that art history people like to have. So that's on Sunday morning at 11. So much going on this weekend. We really, really hope that you'll join us. And following the service, we invite you to come into Amansky Hall. We have a sort of a nice oneg, says Shelby. A nice oneg. Hang around. If you see somebody here who you don't know, please go up to that person. Introduce yourself to them. Come up to us if you don't know us. And hang around. And we hope you have enjoyed tonight and that you'll stick around for some fellowship. So I think it's really only one song that we could conclude our service with. I bet you know what it is. Shabbat shalom. Good Shabbat.